Hey guys, welcome and thanks for tuning in to this first episode of our podcast, All Dreams Are Supernatural. I'm your host, Todd, and in this podcast, we explore one of the most intimate ways that the Lord communicates with us, and that's by dreams. And the proposition I'm putting forth, I know it might sound a little bit radical and a bit maybe unconventional, is this, that all dreams are supernatural. Now, I don't live in a bubble, at least, I'd say that I don't. And I'd venture to say that when it comes to dreams, probably about 98% of humanity probably considers them something like psychological noise or the unconscious, just kind of randomly firing off neurons here and there, no particular aim, no particular logic or meaning. And honestly, I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking that. And actually, up until about 4 months ago, I probably would have said the same thing. But there's really hasn't been a whole lot written on dreams, certainly not in the church. And even in modern psychoanalysis and evolutionary biology, their theories admit that dreams remain deeply shrouded in mystery. So it's no surprise that most people would approach dreams kind of with a status quo or popular lens. But I think that the mystery behind dreams is exactly where the deeper truth begins to unfold. And here, I want to clarify something essential. When I say dreams are supernatural, I mean it literally. That every dream has as its formal and exemplary cause something above and beyond our nature, which leaves three possibilities. 1, God; 2, an angel; and 3, a demon, which is also an angel. We say a fallen angel. Now, it doesn't erase our participation. Dreams are formed in the imagination, so we supply the matter or the clay, the phantasms that are stored up in our memory, sensory images, in the imagination. But the supernatural power is what makes use of these images. And think of it this way. God is the potter, and the images in our imagination are the clay. When he wants to communicate, he touches the clay, he molds what is already within us into something new, into a new message, a new communication. And this brings us directly to the real question, why? Why does God speak through dreams at all? And why are all dreams supernatural? Like, why posit that? And the short answer is that the Lord ties the universal call to holiness with the universal experience of dreams. Every single person dreams, and dreams are a vehicle he uses to speak to us in a way that is intimate and deeply interwoven into our daily lived experience. Sometimes dreams are a simple recall of our day. Maybe it's a recap of our life up to this point. And it's the Lord letting you know simply, I was there in that moment, and I'm here in the present with you now. And sometimes dreams give us a deeper insight about ourselves, maybe like character issues that would be good to address. Sometimes the Lord uses dreams to express his admiration for us and to encourage us. For a multitude of reasons, dreams become one of the simplest, most universal ways that the Lord draws us into a deeper relationship with himself, to grow in virtue and self-knowledge. And ultimately, he wants to draw us into the deeper waters of the mystical life. And perhaps I speak for myself, but it's kind of easy to get caught up in the concerns of the world, whether it's politics or work or current events or even relationships. And that's not to say there isn't a proper place for those types of things, but rather to keep guard against them when they pull you away from the deepest concerns, that is, our spiritual lives and the growth in the mystical life of God's grace. So, to explore this a little more concretely, I want to share a dream that I've had recently because I think it illustrates the pattern beautiful. And this is the dream. We were planning a birthday celebration for an ultra-powerful and wealthy businessman. I found myself in a luxurious skyscraper suite. The businessman stood a few feet in front of me, with his back turned, facing a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking an expansive cityscape, the kind of view only the wealthiest ever see. I knew he was powerful. I could subtly feel the intensity of his power emanating from him. It was solemn and heavy. I asked him where he wanted to celebrate his birthday. I assumed he'd want one of the higher floors because of the prestige and grandeur that accompanied them. It just made sense. Anything less seemed unbecoming for a man of his stature. But his response surprised me. He answered saying he wanted the party on the second floor, which, according to the logic of the dream, was the 12th floor, kind of like the way 12 a.m. comes before 2 p.m. Confused, I asked him why he chose a lower floor instead of the higher ones. Without turning around, still gazing at the city, he simply replied, "Because I want even more people to be able to attend." So, reflecting on this dream, the dream blends universality, humility, accessibility, and love, all pointing toward the soul's journey toward union with God. The lower floor, that's actually the 12th floor, this reveals the totality and the universality of Christ's invitation. And the fact that the entrance into life with him is much easier than we can imagine. And it's accessible to all people. The ease of accessibility is even more realized through dreams. Everyone dreams, and as long as we dream, we are receiving a gift totally free and independent of the state that we find ourselves in. Our dreams are graces that are easily obtained. Hence, again, these lower floors. But with ancillary meaning, to reach a union with God, we must start on the humble floors, the lower levels. And humility is the lowering of oneself before another, esteeming yourself less for the sake of another. This lower level of humility then is the foundation of love and union with God. As Saint Teresa says, "The journey which I am referring to demands great humility, and it is the lack of this which prevents us from making progress." Lacking humility, I think simply of pride, being inflated with ego and self-importance, both of which are obstacles that need to be addressed in order that we can kneel easier before God. In St. Thomas Aquinas, he says it simply. He says, "Humility removes pride, which is opposed to reverence of God, on which reverence charity is founded. Hence, humility lays the foundation for charity." The lower levels are the foundation for the higher levels. But we can also see this dream from the businessman's perspective. His desire to celebrate on the lower level, on the lower floor, so that more people can enter. It mirrors the humility of God himself, who lowers himself to our level in order to draw more souls in. Dreams are one of the ways he stoops down to us. They're personal, they're creative, and they're woven into the fabric of our everyday experience. And of course, this might raise a natural question: why doesn't God just bring souls straight to the higher floors, what St. Teresa calls the fourth mansions, where mystical life and supernatural favors and infused communication flourish? And we don't know fully. As St. Teresa says, "The Lord gives the water of infused contemplation to whom he wishes, when he wishes." But we do know this, that the Lord leads us gradually, sometimes even dilly-dallying. It's an act of his profound mercy. St. Teresa writes again, "His Majesty shows great mercy in leading souls gradually. If he were to show them suddenly the favors he intends for them, they would be dismayed and unable to advance." So I think of it kind of like a store clerk making minimum wage and suddenly overnight becoming CEO of the company. Sure, he'd receive all the privileges of being CEO, but in contrast, he'd be receiving none of the preparation of what it takes to be a CEO, and he'd collapse under the weight of it all, for sure. In the life of grace, the Lord gradually draws us in so as to better prepare us to receive the gift he wishes to dispense. St. John of the Cross echoes the same truth that St. Teresa is talking about. God does not communicate these higher things to the soul suddenly. Rather, he prepares it little by little, purifying and strengthening it until it can endure the weight of so great a glory. That's in Ascent to Mount Carmel. Our dreams are part of that preparation. They're like little parables, little promptings, helping to deepen our faith, our hope, our love, and even our psychological and emotional well-being. They train the heart to receive greater gifts, and perhaps most importantly, they cultivate a greater disposition for lasting peace. If it seems like a lot to take in, similar to the way that I felt about it initially, about like all dreams being supernatural, I challenge you to write down your dreams. Maybe even just start with one. And if you approach them with honesty and humility, and most importantly through the lens of faith, you will grow and you'll be able to take out something great from your dreams. And so that's your next homework assignment until our next podcast. If you seem skeptical, like I said, there's not a whole lot written about dreams. Write one down. And I know for me, like if I don't write it down right away, I usually forget them. And it's probably the same for anyone who's listening to this podcast. So, I keep my phone with me at night. So like when I wake up, sometimes I'll just like write something down like in the morning. So that might be helpful, but write it down and then think about it throughout the day. And I think you'll be surprised at some of the interpretations that you get from your dreams. I'll see you in the next episode.